All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of CO Pod. I'm your host, Caroline, and today I'm joined by Ethan and Joe from the Daily Reporter. Hey, guys. How are you doing?
Good. Great to be here. Thanks for having us, Caroline.
Yeah, we're really excited to have another, construction news site on here. It's very rare that we get to talk to someone who is, the same thing as we are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, great to be here and look forward to it.
Awesome.
Yeah, doing great here. Thanks for having us on, Caroline.
Awesome. So let's just get this started. Give me a little brief Spark Notes version of who you guys are, what you do, and also what the Daily Reporter does.
Sure. Yeah. So the Daily Reporter is based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We have a construction, development, real estate newspaper and online. Um, we're part of Bridge Tower Media, which is got 42 brands across the nation, including three that are strictly construction. But we stretch from everything from legal news to general business. But we've got the three main construction brands, which are based out of New Orleans and Portland and Milwaukee. And we're wholly focused on construction, real estate development, like I said. And each brand has its own online bidding service called Project Center. So we provide, bids for contractors or for subs looking to get on jobs. And then we report the news, which is what Ethan does on a daily basis. So we're a daily Monday through Friday. And like most of our construction brands, really focused online and trying to get information out. And, it's a bit tough these days with the news cycle and everything else, but, we try and stay on top of local developments. So we're a B2B niche publication, focusing on, just providing information to our subscribers. We're completely subscriber based.
Yeah, the news media is a crazy place to be right now. So I think definitely all of our lives are very interesting, so to say, with our reporting cycle.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. We just try and keep up with the news on a daily basis these days.
Yeah, right? Every day's different.
But the good news is, I mean, plenty of news to report on. There's consistent and constant building in all three of our publication areas. So it's pretty easy to find news every day.
Yeah, and then so why did the Daily Reporter get started? What was the need for, your guys' reporting and what you do?
Yeah, so locally in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, we've been around since 1897. It hasn't always been a construction pub, but for the most part, for at least the last 40 or 50 years, we've been focused on construction. So, way back when they were starting to build the town, there was a need to talk about some of the projects that were going on, and that continues today with new buildings that are constantly going up, some of the new ways like BIM modeling, and we've got timber buildings now that are being built. And Milwaukee happens to be home to the tallest, and then there's another pretty big one in the works that I'm sure Ethan will touch on. But there's a constant need for. I'm sure it grew out of people say to me all the time, like, "Hey, what's going up on the corner?" So there's people are interested in construction. They're interested in sort of the future, and what cities are going to look like, and that's where we fill that void.
Yeah. And construction's one of those industries that, it's never going to go away. We are always going to keep building. There's always going to be news to report. So, we're very, uniquely placed in an industry that's always going to need this.
Yeah, yeah, and construction techniques change, and they evolve, and AI is huge now. So that's it's been fun to report on, and it's every day is different, which is another perk to the job. And yeah, I mean, it just continues to evolve.
Yeah. And, Ethan, you're a fellow podcast host as well. So you guys, you have your own podcast over at the Daily Reporter called Brews and Blueprints. So
Yep.
what's that been like for you, Ethan?
Yeah. It's been a good experience. We came up with the idea, I'm going to say early, what is it, 2023? Launched it in early 2024, and we've had some interesting figures on both in the construction industry and, in the public sector as well. We had Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson. Um, I'm going to mess this up. Commissioner of City Development Lafayette Crump. Different people, even the timber construction people had from CD Smith had one of their people on our podcast. So we take it from this approach. We want to cover the industry holistically. And just adding to what Joe said before, I think a lot of business owners kind of want to peek over the fence at what their neighbors are doing construction wise. And there's a lot of it going on in Milwaukee and the rest of the state. So, we're just getting started, I say, and we're hoping to have more people on and have this body of work that kind of tells the story of construction across the state.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's really fun getting another podcast host on here, especially one that, our podcasts are very similar, but also very different at the same time. So it's fun to see your angle of things and how you come at things, um, with your podcast as well.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I think with my aim just as a host is I want to let the subject talk about what they want to talk about and promote what they have to say. If we have a good chat out of it as well, because I think I go on a couple of side tangents um, when I'm on there. But if they seem to like it, I'm all for that. So the more enjoyment you can get out of that. We haven't done any beer tasting on it yet, so maybe we should live up to that, in the next couple of episodes.
I might have to fly out there to come do that with you. I'm a huge fan of craft beer, so a trip out there might be worth it just to do a beer and a podcast.
I can't tell you what to buy because I don't do endorsements, but yeah, you'll find some good craft beer over here.
The good ones. We'll buy the good ones. Awesome. And then, so publications like the Daily Reporter and Construction Owners Club both serve as a resource for the construction industry and businesses. Um, but how can industry professionals use media sites like ours to strategically elevate their companies?
Yeah, so I think on a daily basis we're providing leads to contractors and subs. We're talking about projects that are upcoming. Ethan does a lot of development stories, and that's what our audience I think is interested in because it's a B2B publication. So they're interested in figuring out how to make money, and that's what I sort of ingrain into people's heads around here is we're in it to make our subscribers money. So that's the way we sort of approach every story and everything that we do, including the Brews and Blueprints podcast.
Yeah. And, so do you think construction business owners and leaders should be a little bit more proactive in engaging with industry media? This is an industry where we, in the past haven't really seen that. It's not a super, technological first kind of industry, a little bit more resistant to change. And with all of that. So have you seen them engaging more with your publication and actually using it as a resource?
Yeah, we're finding we have a lot of subscribers that are on the older side, nearing retirement. And I've been in a couple of construction offices where there's not a laptop on the desk. There's not a desktop. We're morphing into that. Construction is and has been a kind of a father son, mother daughter now business. So as it gets handed down through generations, they're becoming more technologically advanced. And that was one of the reasons we launched an online bidding service, because we felt that it was an opportunity for our audience to be able to find jobs electronically and be able to search them easily, and then hopefully in the long run get on jobs and make money. And that's why we exist.
Yeah, it's actually such an interesting kind of turning point that we're in the industry right now where we are seeing all of those older people, phase out, and we're having, newer people come in that are very technologically savvy, and kind of seeing that shift in the industry has been very interesting, especially with AI. You have robots out here now installing solar panels. So how have you seen your audience interact with this and engage with this? Have they been excited about all of these new technology advances, or is there a little bit of hesitation? Because from us, we see kind of both sides of that.
Yeah, Ethan, you want to take that? You're more boots on the ground, so I'm sure you've had that experience.
Yeah, thinking about, I mean, even just from the angle of automated construction using a robot to install a solar panel or rebar. I'm not completely sure what the scene is like over in California, but Wisconsin has a lot of strong. We have a very strong history with labor. We have a very active construction union population that. It's been described to me. It's sort of a love-hate relationship. You save your back and your health for letting a robot tie rebar for you or install a solar panel or precast or any of these other technological features. But the labor unions want to supply work to the contractors reliably and be the first in line for that kind of thing. As these huge projects are on the way in Wisconsin. So it's a little hard to say. For our brand, though, and just to add to what Joe was saying, it's an interesting time because we're engaging with different segments of our audience. I mean, there are the older folks who still read the print media, and then we have podcasting, because I think news consumption is a little different. I mean, usually when people consume news, it's hey Alexa, what are the top headlines today? Or they're behind the wheel listening to a podcast, or at the gym on the treadmill listening to the podcast. So it's an interesting time to be in news right now, especially construction news.
Yeah, and definitely seeing, the rise of the digital news era. We don't have, newspapers being dropped off to our door every day anymore, unless you sign up for it. But, that's just not something you see anymore. The news is being received and given in a very different way than it was before.
Yeah, and we're adjusting, that way too, pushing notifications out and being more active on socials and that kind of thing. So just another avenue to get the news out.
Yeah, and one of you guys said that, one of your biggest goals with the content and the news that you put out is to make your viewers and your listeners money. So what types of stories, do you see resonating most with them? What type of stories do you see really making them money and helping them out?
That's a good question. Joe, have we had feedback from people who said they've? It's hard to say because we don't get that kind of feedback from the audience, but I think just being a pure construction publication, they get a better idea of what the market has to offer, what's popular. In a way of saying right now, I mean, like the data center construction announcement is big. There was the Northwestern Mutual company is redoing one of their offices in downtown Milwaukee, and that involved a lot of pre-bidding meetings for the general contractor and the subcontractors as well, to get their foot in the door for projects. So I guess reporting on even like small proposals like multifamily housing, which is something that I understand is very needed in Wisconsin. That just lets people get there, be preemptive about how they conduct their business.
Just add on to what Ethan said. We're big into analytics, so we get real time analytics. Back pre-pandemic, when everybody was in the office, we had the analytics were on our big screen TV in the newsroom, and we'd constantly be looking at it. It's any kind of project type stories that we do usually drive the most traffic. any kind of development stories because our audience is interested in sort of what's the next job.
Yeah, what's going on next? What's going on now, but looking to the future, what's going on next is always a really big trending topic for us too. Um, and we are based more out of the West Coast. So our news stories and what's trending for us is a little bit different than what's trending for you guys in relation to, those local projects and stuff going on. But even on a nationwide basis, what are some, big trending stories that are really hitting for you guys right now?
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit before. Just with people aging out, so there's a worker shortage. Um, and technology, of course, is huge. So yeah, those are there's some other main drivers. I'm sure I'm forgetting anything, but those are two big areas that we have focused a lot of ink on.
Yeah, we won't even get into the tariffs, but that's a big one too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the news cycle these days is just crazy. We had a story yesterday that we had put online, and then we had to take it down 5 minutes later because it was a story about tariffs, and then there was a 90-day pause on tariffs, so we had to redo the story and put it back. So, it's just sort of the news flow these days, um, but it makes for an interesting day.
Definitely, every day is different.
There are a lot of 180s you have to pull in that newsroom. Yeah, I agree. Materials pricing for the last few months has been very big. We're also big on talking about training the workforce in Wisconsin as well. A lot of, you know, historic apprenticeship program in the state of Wisconsin. Lot of training being offered by different organizations, in Milwaukee, Madison, La Crosse, Eau Claire areas, and northeastern Wisconsin as well, which are all the little different population hubs in the state. So those are big, interesting topics for us as well. And I think, that ties into the labor shortage we talked about is, seeing how people address that in the field.
Yeah, and ABC, the ABC Merit Shop chapter in Wisconsin is the largest in the nation. So there's a big push for apprenticeship training and getting sort of the new generation into the trades. So that's been a huge issue for us.
Yeah, and definitely one of the things that we're seeing too is, this we kind of talked about how we're at this switch with the technology in the industry. And, that is one of the big things that really is enticing some of these young people to join this industry. So that's one of the things that, we're reporting on and we're seeing in our findings is that, more companies that adopt this technology, adopt AI, are more likely to bring in that younger workforce.
Yeah, and I think the industry as a whole, self-admittedly, would say that they've done a terrible job trying to get people, younger people, especially in high school, into the trades. So they're making a big push now to try and offer up, and they really are good family supporting, sustaining jobs. So they just have been trying to get that message out, and we've sort of been that mouthpiece for it.
I've seen that new technology sort of bleeding into the current efforts to recruit younger people, especially high school students, and they're even talking about going younger, like going to middle school students. And I remember I was walking around one of these events, just showcasing different types of trades to get into, and I think I don't know if it was directly through the operating engineers, but one of the workforce programs here had a VR. A kid would put on a VR headset and you know make like they're operating a crane or a bulldozer or whatever, and that gives them a taste of the experience. So seeing something like that in person, I didn't get to try it myself, but seeing that in person was very cool, and I think it's indicative of we're making those steps forward in the construction industry.
Yeah. It's gonna be really, really interesting to see where we are in, a year, 5 years, 10 years. I think, even in a year, this conversation that we're having right now is gonna be so different.
Yeah, and then for the sort of running joke is the construction industry is slow to adapt and slow to change, but I really think that they're catching up as far as like the speed of using technology, and that's due to probably the new generation, but then also just the understanding of the need to be on the forefront of technology and use it to your advantage.
Yeah, yeah. Since we're on this topic about talking about the future, how do you see collaborations between construction media platforms like ours strengthening the industry's ability to share knowledge, but also drive meaningful connections?
Yeah, and really, that's what we're all about. We're one of our taglines is building connections. So we host a number of awards events every year. All of our properties do, to honor. We've got a big one coming up in May called Top Projects, where we honor the best building, whether it be vertical or any other kind of building, really. So we have that coming up in May, and that's one of our more popular events. We've also dived into women's events. So we have a women in construction event, which is really popular across a lot of our brands. So it's we've started offering more networking. We've extended the networking time, especially coming out of the pandemic, because people just wanted to reconnect, and they hadn't seen their friends and cohorts in a while. So all of our events now have like an hour and a half of networking, and then we go to the awards program portion, and then there's another hour or so of networking, and people are always sticking around talking, and so I think that personal connection, and I think being able to shake hands again in person was really a big step that people missed for a while, and construction is built on, it started being built on handshakes, and now there's contracts and everything else, but it's still a person to person meeting. I've been with the company for 15 years, and there's people that I've known for all 15 of those years that still have the same positions for the same companies.
Wow, that's amazing. One of the things I love about your publication and our publication is that, we're not just sitting here just cranking out news stories, but we're really trying to connect with the community and bring the community together, but also kind of serving as a marketing resource for these companies. So at Construction Owners Club, we offer any company free press releases. So offering things like that, offering events, our CO summits, your events, I think we've positioned ourselves as more than just, an information hub, somewhere where you go to get the latest on what's going on, what projects are happening, but really a space where those people can also come and connect with us, connect with each other. Um, so that's been really interesting to be a part of as well.
Yeah, and those are great points, and that's something that we have really focused on in the last number of years, is just not only just reporting the news, but then also providing connections for people to network and to make new connections, whether you be a contractor or a sub or your insurance or bonding or any discipline, basically. It's just bringing people together.
Hmm. So, we're talking about connecting with each other and technology. So we have to bring up social media. How do you see social media really bridging the gap between construction companies, policymakers, the public? That wasn't something that we were using even 15 years ago. So this is another new development.
Well, I would say it's already happening. I mean, if you follow your sources on LinkedIn, you kind of see they interact with each other, either on there or X or Blue Sky or any of these other platforms nowadays. So, I mean, it's already happening. I guess the next thing to do is to figure out how to engage with that and keep them engaged with what you're putting out, as a news source.
How do you guys keep your audience engaged? Tips, tricks, anything.
Yeah, I think the events go a long way, keeping people engaged. We send out daily email blasts with all the news, and stories that people might have missed. So it's just a matter of staying in front of people, which I'm sure you guys do too, Caroline. And it's being there on a daily basis and pushing your information out and planning for events and having people come to the events is the best way we found, at least, to stay top of mind.
Yeah, I mean, fresh content is always a must, and having that funneled into all of your channels. I mean, I think everything I publish on the website goes on LinkedIn shortly afterward. But of course, that's all streamlined through different programs. But I do agree with Joe. You do have to bring people into the real world, into the physical world, and get them connected to events. Having regular conversations with your sources, as a reporter is obviously very important. And being able to engage, the company owners and the union stewards and the marketing team at the company, because a lot of these companies come with marketing professionals as well that reach out to us directly. Um, make yourself available and for them to make themselves available as well. I think those are really good drivers for engagement, to know that we're, real people, not just names on a byline somewhere.
Yes, and we're also not scary reporters that are gonna take your story and twist it the other way, you know? I feel sometimes, when I go to interview people, they're a little wary of reporters and, the media and all of that, and we've seen that in the recent years with the rise of, fake news and all of that crazy stuff going on, so it's an interesting landscape to be a reporter in.
Yeah, and we just really see ourselves as providing information. We're not trying for the gotcha moments. Those things happen, and we need to report on them sometimes when things go wrong. But for the most part, our news is about trends and what's coming up in the future, and how we can help the industry.
Yeah. We were talking about some of those, construction companies that, have, their marketing teams, but also, there's other companies that don't and that they can utilize, our sites and everything that we do to help with their marketing efforts. How can some of those smaller construction firms, make the most out of, our services and everything that we do to help kind of beef up their marketing presence?
Yeah, that's a good question, and there's a lot of smaller companies that we interact with on a daily basis. So, sending out press releases always helps. Going to our events, networking helps. It's just a matter of getting the information to us because we're a statewide publication in all of our markets, and we can't be everywhere, obviously. So getting information helps, and then keeping people engaged through our events usually helps too, because we're in constant contact with a lot of the marketing departments because that's who nominates for our awards events, and that's who winds up sending us press releases. So yeah, it's you don't have to have a big fancy website. You don't have to have a 14-person marketing department to get your news in. We deal with a lot of small companies, especially in Wisconsin. So it's just a matter of them letting us know what's going on, and then we're always willing to follow up.
Mhm. Just reach out. An email is fine, because if we don't know about it, we can't talk about it. It's as simple as that.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like our publications are like that little connector piece in the Lego set that, connects our audience with us, but also connects our audience to each other. That's so important that they're getting out there. And especially for those teams that don't have a marketing department, have a small one, it's really important to get out there and connect with each other. So I love that we are able to be that connector piece for them.
Yeah, and that's a good way to put it, Caroline, and that's what is at the heart of what we do. We're trying to disseminate information to a subscriber base that is just trying to exceed in business. So
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. And then I have The biggest question I'm going to ask you guys today. What's next? What's next for Brews and Blueprints? That's a tongue twister. And what's next for the Daily Reporter?
Yeah, so I can speak to the larger construction publications. I mean, what's next is we're experimenting with AI. We're using avatars as advertisements now for some of our products, and just keeping up with what the market is dictating and reporting on new technologies. I think will help people from the large contractors that we have down to the small mom and pop, type um, businesses. I think it's the way that we're providing information is constantly changing, and getting our information out. I think it it just continues to evolve, and we'll evolve with it, the way that we provide information. Yeah, it's exciting, and the construction industry has been through a lot in the last couple of years, but they continue to excel, and we continue to see skyline changing projects, and so it's really an interesting time in construction.
Yeah, I agree. I think the thing to do is to try our best to adapt because the way people consume news is changing. And, with this podcast, we're reaching a new audience outside of the print and digital models. Um, we're always looking out for good business people to have on as well. And, I'm hoping we can reach most of the audience with, a wide range of topics.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to see all of this and also really excited to see, the advancements in our industry and what we're reporting on in even just a year from now. So, it's going to be very interesting, and I know I've said that a lot in this podcast, but I nerd out over things like this. Technological advancements in the future is just it's so unknown. So there's so many questions that I have and I'm sure you guys have too, but it's going to be very fun for us.
Yeah, it's exciting, and the construction industry has been through a lot in the last couple of years, but they continue to excel, and we continue to see skyline changing projects, and so it's really an interesting time in construction.
An incredibly resilient industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, it was awesome to have you both here. It's really, really great for me to, talk to people who are in, the same positions I am and a great company like you guys are. So this has been great. Thank you guys so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, Caroline. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Caroline. It's cool being on this podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Tune in next week to another episode of CO Pod.